Hi, everybody. My apologies for the late start. It has been an interesting morning, to say the least. Between network issues, lighting, as you can see, didn't quite work out the way I'd hoped. But anyway, these are the joys and the perils of being a freelance, or not a freelancer, a entrepreneur. So I just realized too, I'm looking in the wrong spot in the camera. I'm trying something new today, so just bear with me. I realize I'm doing it differently, so I'm trying to make sure that I look in the right spot when I'm talking to you. So today's topic is six fantastic places to find your next story idea. But before I get started, let me introduce myself. My name is Elke Feuer. I'm an author and the founder of K Writers. And I help writers reach their writing goals by providing them with easy to implement strategies. So this year I decided to do something a little bit different with my topic. And the reason for that is last month I did a survey of the K Writers Facebook group. I wanted to get an idea of things that people were struggling with. And the first thing that came up was idea generation. And from that stemmed the idea that I wanted to do was to pick one specific topic a week that would allow me to sort of delve in a little bit deeper. So as you can guess, February's topic for this month is idea generation. So let's go ahead and get started. Generating ideas is really every writer's bread and butter, whether you write stories, you write a blog, poems, short stories, whatever it is, generating ideas or knowing how to do that is really important. So I'm going to share with you, as I said, 6 places that you can find these ideas. But before I dive into those 6 places, I want to hear from you. I'm always fascinated, and I like to hear about the struggles that other writers are having with their own, with generating their own stories. So I'd love for you to put in the comments the struggles that you face with finding ideas. Okay, number 1, literary sources. There are various forms that you can explore. They include magazines and newspapers, visiting your library, and digging into their historical records, because let's face it, real life is scarier than fiction. Junk mail, why not put that junk mail to good use rather than just dumping it in the trash? Read about myths and fairy tales from other cultures. I'm always fascinated by the similarities, but also the differences, and it's great, especially if you write fantasy. Read different genres. I think sometimes as writers, especially me, I tend to get stuck in reading the same genre, and it tends to have the same voice, and I find when I read outside of my genre, a lot of times it sort of refreshes my mind, and in a sense restarts my creative engine in my mind. I find that helps as well too. Read poetry, especially if it's not something that you do regularly. There's all different kinds of poetries that you can choose from, and I find poetry is really great for sparking your creative juices. The second option is online sources. Now, this is probably the number 1 go-to for most people, just because it's so easy. And I know you've probably heard about a lot of these, but hopefully there's some new ones in here that will inspire you and give you some new ideas. Blogs, these can be your favorite industries. It can be not even your favorite one. If you're writing on something that's sort of outside what you normally write about, exploring different types of blogs is from what you normally read is also a great way to spark creativity as well too, as well as your favorites, news, publications, fashion. I know mommy blogs, whatever it is that you like, they're a great source for finding new ideas. Social media, oh my goodness, whether it's fake news or not, it can actually spark some great ideas. I know a lot of people who've done this on all social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, the options are endless. SlideShare. This is a site that I like to go on. It's basically more of an educational site, and a lot of their presentations are done in sort of a PowerPoint format. But they have content on pretty much every single topic you can possibly think about. And they're at www.slideshare.net. Newsletters from your favorite authors or businesses or organizations that either you find interesting or that you think would be interesting to learn their content. I always get great ideas from newsletters of other bloggers that, just one line in their newsletter feed will say, oh my gosh, this. Or someone in my group mentioned that they're struggling with this. This is a great way that would solve their problem. I mean, the possibilities, I find that that is a great resource for me personally. Writing prompt sites. I think it's Writer's Digest has an option you can sign up for daily writing prompts. This is true. This is great option for writers, especially if you struggle to come up with ideas and you require a prompt in order to sort of get started. This is a really great option as well too. Number 3, visual sources. Artistic photographs and postcards. I like to buy postcards whenever I go to someplace new and tell a story about those pictures, or just keep them as scene ideas, locations, whatever it is. Especially if there's people in there, I tell their story. What are they doing? Where are they going? Where are they coming from? That I find is a really great way to create new ideas. Television shows. Reality shows, if you're into that. I'm not a big reality show person. My 2 favorites are actually TLC and the Investigation Discovery Channel. And I actually came up with one of my story ideas from the TLC. They were doing a documentary on the children of serial killers, and I just thought, oh my gosh, what would life be like growing up either knowing or not knowing that your father or your parent was a serial killer, and finding out and how that would impact your life. And that's sort of where the first book in one of my series, the idea came from. So, ideas can come from television. I mean, I know some people are like, oh, books are better than TV, but the truth is it doesn't matter where you get the ideas once you have those sources to find them. People watching. I think most writers do this naturally. We're inquisitive and we're always wanting to, know who's doing what, listening to conversations, that kind of stuff. And, I used to love to sit in the coffee shop and watch people come in and out, and I would make up stories, especially if I was just there, for lunch and I wasn't really focusing on anything, or if somebody walked in and just something about them struck me. I would, I always kept a journal with me, and I would just jot down, who are they? Where are they coming from? Where are they going? What about them makes them interesting, and sort of telling a backstory about them. And I got some great characters, primary and secondary characters from just people watching. Writing prompt journals. I have an example here. This is a great one that I picked up. I'm not much of a writing prompt person where I require a prompt, but I thought that I actually purchased this for the writers in the writing group, because I know some of them were asking for writing prompts, and I used this at different times. And this, you can actually buy these at most bookstores, and this is 642 things to write about. I mean, how awesome is that? I think the book itself was only $17. I'm sure you can get some that are cheaper than that. And it has, this is basically story ideas for more than a year. So these are fantastic as well too, especially if you're a writer who likes to have an actual prompt in order to start writing. Take pictures of people interacting or places and use those to create a story. Similar to the postcard idea and pictures, take your own pictures. I find that there's quite a few writers that I know that actually do this. for settings. I've done this personally when I was writing about my hometown. I went and took pictures of the area, not only just to get a feel of the area, but just to have a visual reference while I was writing, and then jotting down notes about, the smells, using my five senses to describe the place of the pictures that I took, the people who were there. I found that really helped while I was writing, and then it also sparked some ideas for characters as well too. So that, is open to a lot of other possibilities. Keep a journal and write down daily interactions with people, places, and things. As I was saying, using your five senses. I do that a lot. I love sitting in the coffee shop and people working. I keep this. This is my favorite all-time journal. And if I'm struggling to, write, or I just need to do something creatively different, then I literally sit in the coffee shop or sit somewhere outside and I journal, every day, what's going on around me, the people that I'm seeing. This is a really great, and like I said, describing them with my five senses. It's a way to spark your creativity as well as get your creative juices flowing. This is really good, especially if you're like having writer's block and you don't know what to write about. This has really helped me. This exercise has really helped me with that, as well as, like I said, help generate ideas as well. Take pictures of landscape, structures, scenery, sunsets, beaches, beautiful scenery. And not just for stories. I find this one here, along with generating ideas, I think sometimes we as writers, we're so focused on the idea that we don't take a step back and allow ourselves to breathe and enjoy the world around us. And this exercise, I find, is really, really helpful, not just for generating ideas, but helping to refill our creative well, give us a different perspective on our lives and what's going on around us. And I find it just refreshes our creative well. Number 4, audio sources. Listen to and jot down dialogue. This kind of goes back to what I was saying about people watching, but instead of watching the people, you're actually listening to their conversations. I love this. Sparks so many ideas, whether it's for stories, dialogue, a character's voice. There's endless possibilities when you're actually listening and jotting down the dialogue that you're hearing. Not necessarily focusing on what they're talking about because, you're being a bit nosy, but, you're picking the meat and just, how, if they have a dialect, certain words that they use that could be, specific to them as an individual. Listen to music, new music. Specifically, and then describe how it makes you feel. I find that this is really great for if you're wanting to get ideas about your surroundings. It's just a great way to, like I said, get ideas for, sounds of things around you. And also think about what is the author, or not the author, the songwriter trying to convey? Is it a message? Sometimes writers or songwriters specifically, when they sing a song, sometimes it's very clear what it is, and sometimes there's underlying stories, and I try to figure that out and write it down, and a lot of times that gives me new ideas, for stories or people. Research backgrounds for groundbreaking musicians. The reason why I recommend this one is because when I was writing my very first book, I love Billie Holiday. And, she was just a fascinating character for me, and she was sort of who my character was based on. Not completely, because they are, personality-wise, they're completely different. But just the era that she was in and just the struggles that she went through as a female artist in the 1950s and 40s and 60s. And I just found that her story was so fascinating. I thought, wow, what other musicians who, sort of were groundbreakers in their industry or in that, and the struggles that they went through. I find sometimes that, it's interesting when you dig into people's lives, especially famous people, how unique but similar we are. And I find that really helped when I dug into Billie Holiday's, there wasn't a lot of information, but when I dug into her background, there was some interesting aspects that I wrote into the story of things that were happening either at the time or within her life. Okay, number 5, personal sources. And what I mean by that is doing something as simple as asking questions like, what message do you want to share? What's close to your heart? What knowledge do you have to share? Just those simple questions. Sometimes we are so focused on everything else, we don't necessarily look at ourselves as a source for ideas. As well too, my goodness, I've got like a stack of this much journals with, things that were happening in my life, story ideas, poems, everything. And sometimes when we haven't looked back at those in a long time, they're a great source for finding, like I found tons of poetry that, some of it was bad, don't get me wrong, but some of it was actually really good and actually gave me ideas of characters and stories that I could write about or add to an existing story. Past experiences that changed your life. I think as writers, we sometimes, like to add our experiences within our stories. And, this is, if you're struggling for an idea, this is also another one, thinking about the, challenges that you've had in your life and how you can create a story or a character from that, or, a storyline for your characters is also another way to do it as well. Change your location. That's something that is so simple but is so powerful as well too. For me personally, if I'm struggling and I'm writing at my desk all the time and I am just not getting forward, I'm just stuck, I like to head up to the coffee shop for one day and just write there, or write on the back patio. It's just something different sometimes that just really not just sparks new ideas, but it also helps refresh my creative well as well too. Go for a walk or exercise and describe the experience. I think sometimes, we don't think those things are really interesting, but a lot of times, they can be. We see interesting people that we pass or that are at the gym. Come on, who hasn't seen some crazy people at the gym? Right? And, that's a great way. And describing, what you see, what you hear, is also a great way to get some story ideas as well, too. Do a new creative activity that takes you outside of your comfort zone. Now, this is like if you're just but you're maybe, think about doing something creative like poetry, creative write. Take a creative writing class, take a pottery class, take a sewing class, just something different, so that you're still using your creative mind, but you're just sort of using it a little bit differently. And I find that is great because it takes you out of your comfort zone. And let's face it, you're going to see and meet some interesting people when you go to these places. So that is another great place another great way you can get new story ideas. Brainstorming. Oh my goodness. This is a fantastic option that I love to use all the time, especially when I'm trying to plot out scenes. And what it means is just taking 5 to 10 minutes and just with a piece of paper and sit down and just think about all the things that pop into your mind, whether it's what's going on personally, professionally, and just write down ideas. Just do nothing but that. You're not developing them. You're not dwelling on them. You're just jotting them down. And while, it might not be this fantastical story or this fantastical character, sometimes it's just something that one thing out of those, 5 or 10 things can be a new story idea. And, that's worth the 5 or 10 minutes that it took for you to sit down and do that. And some things to brainstorm about are your favorite books and their topics, genres that you enjoy reading and what you liked about them, maybe specific themes within those stories. Your favorite movie themes, that's also a great one, as well as, research, review the research from your last story. I find that a lot of times I'll research I'll make a list of things to research and I don't always use them in my book, or I've had it where that it's actually sparked an idea. So I was like, oh man, what a great research idea, or something within while I'm researching it. And it's like, this would make a great story, or this would make a great location or a character. These are all great nuggets that we already have that we can utilize. And last but not least, I call this the twisted sources. And what I mean by that is thinking about twisting the genre of a popular storyline. Like for instance, when they did, I think it was, the series was called Cinder. And it's the story of Cinderella, but they put a twist on it, and Cinderella was a cyborg. And I just thought, wow, that's really interesting. Now, I didn't read the whole story, honestly. I just flipped through it in the bookstore because it was a YA, and that's not really a genre that I'm partial to. But I just thought it was a really fascinating twist on a classic. So that's, one thing. I got a story idea from that as well, too, where I switch the gender of a popular story. So instead of it being a male, I made the character a female. And I know some authors that have done that as well too. Some that have put twists on, popular fairy tales. I know a writer who did one on genies. There's just switching it up and looking at things from a different perspective. Write a scene from your favorite book or movie and change it up. Write a story about someone you've lost touch with. I did this in an exercise in a creative writing class, and it actually sparked an idea, or I should say a character, for a story that I was writing. And it was just someone that, was such a big part of my life when I was a teenager, and that I had just lost touch with. And I just, rewrote, what I loved about them, who they were, the relationship that we had. And that was just a fantastic experience. And it really, like I said, helped me to find a new character for my story. Create character sketches of your favorite book or movie characters. We all have our favorite book boyfriends, as some people like to call them, and write, create a character sketch from those people. That's a great way, it can either spark an idea or spark, a new character. The most important thing is you're getting new ideas from these options. Okay, and that's it. But before I wrap it up, I just want to share with you one important tip, or I should say 2 important tips to never run out of ideas. And the first one is to always be open to new experiences. Sometimes as writers, we can kind of put our head down, we're focusing on our story, our characters, we're not paying attention to what's going on around us, that we forget, there's this whole world around us that actually is a great place to get ideas from. So, and also be open, like I said, if somebody calls you to go somewhere different that you've never been to, especially if you're an introvert, this could be a great experience. So be open to those experiences, and, be aware of the world around you. Oh my gosh, like I said, real life is so much better than fiction. And a lot of times, it's scary when we think about what's going on in the world today. But, if we take a minute and look at the world around us, whether it's good, the bad, or, the horrible, a lot of times it can spark ideas and our creativity. So just to be open and be aware of those things is a great way to never run out of ideas. If I love helping writers and giving them the same joy that I had when I, whether it's to get a new book idea or whether it's just to, get accepted by a publisher, whatever that experience is for me, is just the joy that I get or I've gotten. I really want other writers to have that, and that's one of the primary reasons why I created K-Writers, because I just love the joy on people's faces and just hearing about their experiences, just in something simple that I did to help them. And I'm really taking that to the whole new level this year, and I'm doing that by creating a lot more really usable content. I'm very much a checklist kind of person where I love writing down stuff and really getting down to the nitty-gritty and having something tangible that I can work with. And I wanted to create those resources for writers, because a lot of times, you know, it's just not knowing where to start or how to get going. And, you know, that's within each topic that I'm going to be discussing and talking about, I'm going to be creating a free resource for you to be able to, or for writers to be able to, you know, utilize as well. And the resource for this month is called the Idea Generator Workbook. You know, because February is idea generation. So what better topic or what better resource to provide you than that? So this Idea Generator Workbook is designed to help you uncover what you should write and to help you choose which ideas are best. So you can download that at bit.ly/IdeaWbook, and I'll put the link in the comments as well too. And you know, this is a completely free workbook for you. Like I said, I really want to take helping writers to a new level this year by providing them you know, tangible resources and easy to implement resources. It's not some workbook that's like this thick. It's just a few pages, and it'll really help you with idea generation, especially if you're struggling for ideas or not knowing what to choose to write. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I apologize for the first video going wacko on you. I just had some technical difficulties, and I just kept having them every time I tried to redo the video or the live. So, but here you have it, the full video for this topic today. And please join me tomorrow. I still want to stay on schedule with the regular Facebook Lives on Fridays at noon Eastern Standard Time. So I will see you tomorrow, and I'll be honest with you, I can't remember the topic that I'm talking about, but I know that it's going to be something that you can use and that will be helpful to you. All right, take care. Have a fantastic day. Bye.